Hello everyone, welcome to Tangle with Tracy Ann. In today's video, I'll be showing you my entire process of finding inspiration, choosing tangles, and composing a tile. I'm very fortunate to live on the east coast of Australia, and my inspiration today has come from my visit to the beach. Now that I'd picked my theme, I headed over to tanglepatterns.com, and you can see here there's so much information. I find that a little companion book that they've created much easier to navigate this website. You don't need it, but this is how it works. It's called the Tangle Guide, and you can see little thumbnail sketches of all the tangles. If you click on any one of them, it will then take you directly to their website and the exact page of that tangle. So once you click on it, it then say open in, I've opened it in Safari, and there's the tangle. It'll give you a little bit of information about the person that designed the tangle, and often it's the step out on that page or a link to the step out if it might be on the creator's website. You can see there's a whole alphabet at the top. So if I click on R, that's one of the tangles we'll be using today, and scroll down, and you can see there's a couple of pages. So if we go into the second page and scroll down, find the tangle that I'm going to use, and there it is. So I'll click on it, and again it comes up with more information about the tangle and the step out. I'll list all the tangles we used today below this video so that you can visit this website if you want to check out the step out yourself. Once I've chosen my tangles, I head over to my sketchbook and practice the tangles I've chosen, and then have a little go at some sort of composition to see if it works. I've decided to use watercolour pencils, and I've picked out some colours that I think will be appropriate. I'll also be using a micron 01, a pencil and a white gel pen. You could use our Zendala Tile. I have one here, but it's pre-strung, so it won't suit what I'm doing today. So I've cut one out of watercolour paper, and now I'm drawing around a circular shape, which happens to be a drink coaster, and made an arch kind of a string. Using my micron 01, I'm going to draw a pattern that looks like waves crashing on the shore, and this tangle is called Tamisolo, and it's by Hanny, Waldburger, CZT. First I draw a spiral. Once I get to the center, go back the other way, form a little peak, and then back to the beginning. And now I'm going to draw several of these, make them different sizes until I get right around that whole arch. And now I'll draw around the border with my micron 01. This next tangle is called Sea Wave by Ginny Lu, CZT. And first of all, I draw some wavy lines, and then I divide these lines up by finding parts where it curves and joining it to the line that's below it. So it's just dividing it up into sections. There's no right or wrong here, just where you feel it naturally will flow. Once I've done that, within each of the sections, I'm drawing some contour lines, nice fine lines to fill up the space. and you can see that it looks darker at the tip where the lines are closer together. The next tangle is called Mositoo by Katy, Kehoe, CZT, and I chose this tangle because it looks a little bit like seaweed. I found a shell shape called Konk by Manoogian, CZT. This next shell shape is called Sanibelle by Tricia, Farone, CZT. It's like one of those fan-shaped shells, fairly simple. I'll fill this area with the tangle Roxi by Beth Snoderly, and it's the one that I showed you before on the website. Nice little tangle that will just fill in those spaces and look a bit like pebbles on the beach. Another shell tangle is called Buen Camino by Tina Hunziker, CZT, and I've drawn this very small, so I'll link all of these tangles below the video so you can look them up if you want to find the step out for them. I want to keep this area fairly open, so I'm just adding a little tangle called Shiraz by Linda Farmer, CZT, and add a few little dots of sand. Whenever I use watercolour, I always erase the pencil lines, and we don't really have much of a pencil line there, but take it away. And I'm going to start on the sand, and I've chosen these two pencils. So this one is called Dark Naples Ochre, and I'm going to fill that whole area that could be sand in this colour. This next colour is Raw Umber. It's just slightly darker, and I'm going to go around the edges of all the objects there in the sand to create shadows or a bit of a darker tone in the sand. An advantage of using watercolour pencils is that if I put the colour in a wrong place, I can erase it before I add the water, and that will fix it up. I'm going to activate this colour with a water brush, and this one has a fine tip. You can see the water is contained in the top. Of course you can use a normal paintbrush, and I'm going to squeeze a little bit of moisture out onto the paper towel to get the bristles nice and wet. Now I'm going to work my way around the sand and gradually drag the darker colour into the lighter areas. I can clean my brush easily by squeezing out some water and just dabbing it on a paper towel. I'm now going to work on that area at the top, so it's not right next to where I've just coloured. And the colours I've chosen for this are Prussian Blue and Cobalt Green. So I'll start with the Prussian Blue, and I'm going to colour just in the corners where all the lines meet. And so put a little bit of colour down one end and down the other end, and make my way right through all those waves. I'll use the Cobalt Green to fill the remaining area in those waves. I don't need to overlap, I just want a little bit of colour in each of the centres of those sections. When I activate the pigment in these waves, I'm starting from the center where the colour is lighter. And if I keep my paper towel handy, I can keep dabbing off the colour if it's too intense. So start with that center, drag that darker blue into it, and then wipe off my brush, and I can pull some of that pigment back out to make the center a lot lighter. If your brush starts to get a little bit dry, squeeze a bit more water out onto the paper towel. While that colour is drying, I'm now going to move to a different area on my tile that's not next to the one that's still wet. For the shells, I've chosen coral and Pompeian red. Starting with my coral, I'm going to colour the whole shell. I'm leaving the tip a little bit white so that that area is much lighter in intensity. And you'll notice as I colour this Konk tangle, I'm leaving little areas white as well, just so that it looks like highlights on the shell. I'll add some darker tones now using the Pompeian red, and that will give a little bit more depth to the shapes. When I activate this colour, I'm starting from the lightest section and moving down into the darkest. And that's because if I did it the other way around, that darker colour would completely cover the whole shell. And I want those little highlights to stand out. Again, keep wiping the brush on the paper towel, and I can lift some of that colour down those ridges, and it gives you a little bit more of a three-dimensional effect. It brings out those highlights. So just lift it up and drag it off. With a nice clean brush, I can just soften those edges a little bit. I'm doing the same on this shell, keeping the lighter areas nice and light, lifting any colour when I need to. Once the tile is completely dry, I can always go back in and add more highlights to those areas with a white gel pen. For the seaweed, I've chosen to use an earth green yellowish and a pine green. I'll be using 2 shades of grey for the rocks, and they are Cold Grey 2 and Cold Grey 4. Using the lighter grey for the top of the rocks and the darker grey for underneath in those layers that we've drawn. For the waves crashing on the shore, I'll be using a light ultramarine and an Indanthrene Blue, starting with that lighter ultramarine colour. I'll move my way around the top part of this tangle and leave the underneath for the darker colour. I'll also put a bit of this darker blue at the corners of each of the tangles, and I'll blend that up into the lighter blue just to give it a little bit more depth. That's the centre finish, but before I move on to the border, I'll just be letting you know I do have a couple of mishaps, and rather than editing them out of the video, I thought I'd leave them in so you can see what happens. Now, first of all, I think I've done that border too dark, and the reason being, when I tried to add a darker colour to this tile that I practiced on, the white from the gel pen came off. On my practice tile, the white gel pen didn't show up, so I chose to use this broader tip, which goes on a lot darker, and it's providing quite a bit of contrast. I'm not quite sure I like that either, but we'll move on. I'm repeating that Tangle Shiraz that I used in the centre of the tile because I thought it made a bit of a frothy water look, as if the wave was crashing onto the sand. So that's the finished result, and now I'm going to add some shadows using a grey, the darker grey pencil, just to darken up the edges a little bit. You could use a texture, a grey texture, and you'll see in a moment that I should have done that. On my original practice tile, I didn't have a problem, but as I'm moving around the tile, I'm putting my hand in it and creating a smudge. So there it is, dirty great smudge. Okay, so what can we do about that? I'll get my clean paintbrush, put clean water on it, and just dab it off. And it is lifting it off. It's also lifting off that white gel pen. So once that's dry, I'll go back in and back over those shapes. And that seems to have done the trick. I'm now going to go back to the tile and add some highlights with the white gel pen. This is a Tombow marker, a grey colour, and this is what I possibly could have used right at the beginning. So I'm going to go back again, go over where I did that grey watercolour pencil, and just make that shadow area a little bit darker. Just creates a little bit more depth in the picture. So I'm adding some more pink to this shell to clean it up a little bit. It was looking a bit muddy, and that's one thing that can happen with any kind of watercolours. If I compare this tile now to the practice tile, I don't like the border of the new tile. I think it's not as subtle. So knowing that that white gel pen comes off, I'm going to go right around the edge. Don't panic. It has made it softer, and this time it's completely dry, and I'm going over the pattern, I can just see it, with this jelly roll pen. It is still a 10, it's a wider one. Now I can compare the two, and I've got a much more subtle effect. I'm far happier with this new border. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, do that so that you don't miss out on future videos. Until next week, stay safe and bye for now. If you'd like to see more of my videos, head over to my YouTube channel, or there are a couple of links here on the screen, and there's the subscribe button.